Okay, so today we're going to get into one of the most famous periods in all of history, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace.
hmm It's a name everyone's heard, but what it actually was is pretty incredible.
Right. It sounds so calm, Roman peace. But it wasn't just a quiet time. It was a system, an engineered period of stability.
It absolutely was. We're talking about a 200-year stretch starting in 27 BC of just extraordinary prosperity and stability across this enormous empire.
And the context here is so important. This didn't just happen. It came right after decades of, just brutal civil wars, Roman generals fighting each other,
Yeah.
the Republic basically tearing itself apart.
Exactly. So the real question is, how do you go from total chaos to 2 centuries of relative peace? That's the story we need to unpack.
And that story really starts with one person, Augustus Caesar.
It has to. He was Rome's first emperor, but he was also, the architect of the whole system. He saw the big problem.
Which wasn't an outside enemy.
No, not at all. The problem was internal. It was ambitious Roman generals with their own loyal armies fighting for power. The old Republic system just couldn't handle the huge territory Rome now controlled.
So what was his solution? You can't just say stop fighting. And Romans famously hated the idea of a king.
Yeah, that was a genius of it. He had to be very, very careful. He came up with this idea called the Principate. He never called himself a king. He called himself the Princeps, the first citizen.
So it sounds like he's still part of the old system.
Exactly. It's a clever rebranding. But behind the scenes, he took control of all the important offices, and the most important one was commander-in-chief of the military, permanently.
Ah. So he centralized all military power.
He did. He made it so no other general could raise a private army to challenge the state. That move right there is what really ends the civil wars.
But that's just the military side. You can't run a giant empire just with soldiers. The government itself was a mess.
Right. A total mess. It was inefficient, often corrupt. You had officials who were only in their jobs for a year. Can you imagine trying to run a country like that, let alone an empire?
No long-term planning possible.
None. So Augustus created something new. A professional civil service. These were paid, trained administrators, not politicians, who handled the day-to-day work, tax collection, public works, you name it.
So you get continuity. Doesn't matter who the politicians are, the government keeps running smoothly.
That's the idea. And to show everyone that a new, stronger era had begun, he literally rebuilt Rome. He famously said he found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble.
That's a powerful statement.
It's a symbol of strength and stability.
Yeah.
This new government was secure, it was efficient, and it was here to stay.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Augustus sets up the system. But the group that really had to maintain this peace day in and day out was the Roman army.
And their job description totally changed. We think of the legions as these conquering machines, always on the attack.
But that wasn't their main job during the Pax Romana.
Not really. The focus shifted from offense to static defense. Their primary role became guarding the thousands of miles of imperial borders, the limes, they call them.
And this is where we get the famous walls, like Hadrian's Wall in Britain.
Exactly. They became master builders. They built massive stone walls, wooden forts, watchtowers, a whole network designed to keep hostile tribes out, particularly in the north against Germanic tribes and in the east against the Parthian Empire.
So the army becomes more like a permanent border patrol.
A very, very well-trained and disciplined border patrol. But they did more than just stand guard.
What else were they up to?
Building. They built thousands of miles of paved roads, stone bridges. This was a military project, first and foremost.
To move troops quickly.
Instantly. If there was a revolt in some province or a raid on the border, they could march a legion there in record time to stamp it out before it grew. That infrastructure was the key to maintaining control.
And all that security and all those roads, that has a huge knock-on effect for the economy.
Oh, it's the single most important factor. With the army keeping the land routes safe, and the navy also under the emperor's control, clearing the pirates from the Mediterranean.
Suddenly it's safe to trade.
It's not just safe, it's easy. Think about it. You can ship heavy goods like grain from Egypt or olive oil from Spain all the way to Rome without much risk. That was revolutionary.
And didn't they also standardize the money?
Yes. A single reliable currency used everywhere from Britain to Syria. Imagine how much that simplifies business. You don't need money changers. You don't have to worry about exchange rates. It just works.
So you start to see regions specializing in what they do best.
Absolutely. The empire becomes this huge, interconnected economic zone. Egypt is the breadbasket. Coal produces wine. And this wealth isn't just from inside the empire.
You mean luxury goods from even further away?
Yeah, from the Far East. Silk arrived from China, traveling along the Silk Road. Spices from India. All this trade generated immense wealth, which is what funded the great cities.
Let's talk about those cities because the engineering that went into them is just mind-blowing, even today.
It really is. And the key invention that made it all possible was concrete. The Romans perfected a recipe using volcanic ash that was incredibly strong and durable.
It let them build on a totally different scale.
A completely different scale. You couldn't build something like the Colosseum or the Pantheon just by stacking stones. You needed concrete, and just as importantly, you needed the arch.
The arch let them build bigger and stronger bridges and buildings, right?
Yes, it distributes weight so much more effectively than a flat beam. But the most spectacular feat of engineering, for my money, has to be the aqueducts.
Bringing fresh water into the cities.
From mountains, sometimes over 100 miles away. This is what made life possible for over 1 million people in the city of Rome. It supplied public baths, fountains, and even indoor plumbing for the rich.
So, 1 million people. What was life actually like in a city like Rome during this period of peace?
It was crowded and noisy. The center of public life was the Forum. It was this big, open square, sort of like a town center where you'd have government buildings, temples, and markets.
And for entertainment.
The government had that covered. It was a core part of their strategy to keep the people happy.
The famous bread and circuses.
Literally. They gave out free or subsidized grain to feed the poor, and they put on huge public spectacles. Chariot races, gladiator games, plays in these massive amphitheaters. It was a way to keep a massive, potentially restless population under control.
But where did everyone live? It wasn't all marble villas.
Oh, not at all. Most people lived in crowded, multi-story apartment blocks called insulae, and these were often poorly built, cramped, and a huge fire hazard. So there's this contrast between the magnificent public city and the much tougher reality of daily life for the average person.
You have the physical structures, the roads, the aqueducts, but what about the invisible structures like the law?
I think you could argue that Roman law is their most important legacy. It created a common set of rules for millions of different people.
And it had some principles that we'd recognize today, right?
Absolutely. The most famous is probably the idea that you are innocent until proven guilty. Decisions were supposed to be based on written laws and evidence, which made the system much more fair.
And this system wasn't just for people born in Rome.
No, and that was key. Over time, Roman citizenship was gradually granted to more and more people across the provinces. So a merchant in France or a landowner in North Africa could have the same legal rights as someone in Italy. That creates a sense of shared identity and loyalty.
And alongside the law, you have language.
Right. Latin became the official language for government, the courts, and the army. Now, in the eastern part of the empire, most people still spoke Greek for daily life and business, and that was fine. But for dealing with the empire's administration, you used Latin. It was the glue holding the bureaucracy together.
And 200 years of peace is a pretty good environment for art and culture to flourish.
It's the perfect environment. You get writers like Virgil and Horace producing epic poems and literature. Education was really important to the upper classes, and Roman styles of art and architecture were copied everywhere, creating this common visual culture across the whole empire.
Okay, so the system Augustus created is working. It's at its absolute peak during the reign of a group known as the Five Good Emperors.
Yes, this is the high water mark of the Pax Romana. It's Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius.
And what made them good? What was special about them?
The big thing was that succession wasn't just based on family. For the most part, these emperors chose and adopted a successor based on their ability and their skill. It was a kind of meritocracy.
They were trying to pick the best person for the job, not just the closest relative.
That was the idea, and it worked. Under Trajan, the empire grew to its largest size ever. Then his successor, Hadrian, decided enough was enough. He focused on strengthening the borders, not expanding them. That's when he built his famous wall in Britain.
It sounds almost too good to be true, though. Was it really all just peace and prosperity? Were there no problems?
Oh, there were definitely problems. The peace was never absolute. You still had major revolts that had to be put down brutally, like in Judea and Britain.
And I imagine the borders were always under some kind of pressure.
Constant pressure, the army was always busy, and the trade routes, as wonderful as they were for the economy, had a dark side.
Disease.
Exactly. Plagues could travel just as easily as silk or grain, and when they hit the crowded cities, the results could be devastating, killing huge numbers of people. The stability was strong, but it was fragile.
So what finally brought it to an end? If the system could survive all that, what broke it?
It all goes back to the problem Augustus tried to solve: succession. The whole system really depended on having a competent, stable person at the top.
And the last of the good emperors, Marcus Aurelius, he made a different choice.
He did. He broke the tradition of adopting a skilled successor and instead let his own son, Commodus, take over.
And Commodus was not up to the job.
He was the opposite of up to the job. He was selfish, unstable, and had no interest in actually governing. The system could handle a border raid or even a plague, but it couldn't handle sustained bad leadership at the very top.
So once the center fell apart, the whole structure started to crumble.
It did. After Commodus, the empire fell back into civil war. Generals started fighting for the throne again, just like in the old days. The army was busy fighting itself instead of the borders.
And the economy must have collapsed.
Completely. You get massive inflation, breakdown of trade. All the things the Pax Romana had solved came rushing back. The special period of stability was over.
So when you look back at the whole 200-year period, what's the big takeaway?
I think the Pax Romana shows us that peace isn't just an accident. It's the result of having strong institutions, a disciplined military focused on defense, and incredible infrastructure that connects everyone through trade and law.
It's a blueprint for stability, but one that relies on having good leadership to maintain it.
Exactly. It's a powerful lesson, and its principles still influence us today.
A fascinating period. Good luck with your studies.